All right, we're good to go, Gary.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending our Oswego County Industrial Development Agency meeting on March 9th, 2022. And what I'd like to do before we begin is go around the table, introduce everybody and our guests for anybody that's watching that maybe is not familiar with the board. So start with you, Michael.
Mike Treadwell, CEO of the IDA.
Glenn Schick, Secretary, IDA.
Tim Stahl, board member.
Nick Canale, Vice Chair of the IDA.
Gary Toth, Chairman of the IDA.
I'm Kevin Caracoli, General Counsel.
And Bob.
Bob Wilmot with the Carpenters Union.
Austin Wheelock, staff support.
And
Kevin LaMontagne, I'm the Chief Financial Officer of the agency.
And on the phone, we have Morris Sorbello, board member. Thank you for attending, Morris. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks. Okay, so might as well get into the business at hand. First item on our agenda is the minutes of February 15th, 2022. I'm sure everybody got them in their portal. Did you get a chance to review them? Do I have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as written?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Tim Stahl, seconded by Nick Canale. Is there any discussions, errors, or corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are carried. And item number 2 is treasury report. There was no treasury report sent in our portal. And the meeting notice for this meeting was in the Palladium Times on February 26, 2022. So I'm skipping item number 4. We're going to go into executive session with that. And we're going to go to 5, which is Hawthorne Holdings, LLC, the Highland Animal Hospital. And who's going to speak on that?
Mike, do you want to cover that, or you?
Well, I'll kick it off and I'll turn it over to you. This is a project that we've been working on for quite a while now. There's been some delays in the project, some delays associated with getting through all the planning process in a municipality, and some delays associated with the alignment of the financing. They did apply for the CFA, not once but twice, and did not get the CFA funding, but the project is still moving forward. They will be getting some financing through their bank, and they will also be getting an SBA 504 loan. It won't be through Operations Oswego County, but it's a bank, a lender that's aligned with TD Bank, the primary lender. And good project. They are building 7,200 square feet of space for their hospital facility. They have an existing facility there now that they will continue to own, and it may be used in a way complementary to the new facility that they're going to build. They got currently they have 15 jobs, and they expect to double their employment with this expansion. It's about a $2.3 million expansion project. So it's in Central Square. It's in the village, and it's a project that is going to address a need in Oswego County and that part of Central New York, because it's going to operate an urgent care facility, which is very difficult to find treatment in urgent care facilities in Central New York. So it's owned by Alex Hawthorne. We all know the Hawthorne family associated with Buddy Broadwell. She is a native of this area. Went away to school, came back, and they bought an existing facility that the owner was retiring, and got their foot in the door in Central Square, and now they are more than doubling the size of their business. Anything else you want to add, Kevin, to that?
About the pilot itself, so they've applied for our whole slate of exemptions, the pilot and sales tax and works recording tax. The pilot is a 10-year UTEP pilot, which the deviation or the abatement schedule will only apply to the increase in assessment, so pretty much a standard UTEP 10-year being classified as essentially a retail project. What else can I say? Today on the agenda we have four resolutions. The standard approving resolutions. This, as far as the seeker goes, the Village of Central Square acted as lead agency, and they declared it a negative declaration on an unlisted action. So we have the documentation for that. So that's basically what I have to add.
I think from was there a public hearing held up there already?
Yes, thank you, Tim. There was, and we've been working on this for so long. It was quite some months ago. In fact, I think it was in the fall. So we had a public hearing down there in the village. In fact, it was in the town office due to some scheduling situations, but it just a representative of the company and Mike and myself came, so there was no debate. We haven't received any feedback in the agency about the pilot. So.
The project has been strongly supported by the local community. As a matter of disclosure, on this, Chairman Weatherup was involved in selling the property that they're building this facility on. So I'm sure at some point in time we will have to get and obtain a letter from not the chairman but the vice chairman due to conflict of interest because this is being defined as the pilot being provided as an exemption relative to a retail project. So that will be forthcoming after all these other resolutions are approved.
Another thing about this is it's a woman-owned business. It's WBE, which is good.
All right, I'll make the motion for the secret resolution.
Okay, starting down, we'll go with the seeker. Seeker. We have a motion by Tim Stahl, seconded by Nick Canale on the seeker. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, now I'll entertain a motion and a second on the inducement resolution.
I'll make the motion.
Motion. Do I have a second?
Second it.
Motion by Nick Canale, seconded by Len Schick on the inducement resolution. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Morris. Okay, the inducement is passed. Number 3 is the pilot resolution. Do I have a motion and a second in the pilot resolution?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. We have a motion by Tim Stahl, seconded by Gary Toth on the pilot resolution. Is there any questions or discussions? All those in favor of the pilot resolution?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Okay, the final approving resolution. Can I get a motion and a second on the final approving resolution?
I'll move it.
Okay, motion by Len Schick. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Morris seconds it.
Okay, thank you, Morris. Motion by Len Schick, seconded by Morris Sorbello on the final approving resolution. Any discussions or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Final approval resolution is carried. So that completes Hawthorne Holdings. Okay, there's quite a few items under executive session. So I guess what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, Mike, going down to maybe Vista site, and then
Should that be under
oh, that's
executive?
a
14 is what.
14, Build Back Better
Yeah,
Regional
and
Challenge.
Austin's here for that.
Okay,
Sure.
Austin, why don't you come up here and
Okay.
that way we can,
You see me?
yeah.
No problem.
Okay, so the deadline is coming up quickly. The deadline is actually next Tuesday, March 15th, to submit the Phase 2 application for Regional Build Back Better the Build Back Better Regional Challenge. We are pretty close at this point. We're just kind of updating any letters we need, updating the narrative. All the forms are put together. Had Dave Botar review. We're in a good spot. We are having final adjustments made to the preliminary engineering report from CNS as well as the environmental report, which were those were approved to be funded at a previous meeting by the IDA. So we're in a good spot. The other applications are also moved along pretty well. The other 7 component applications as part of our larger regional application. And you know, I think that it's the public infrastructure, if we can get that funded, will be a key piece of making that industrial park happen. There's some other stuff that we'll have to address outside of the EDA grant that is not eligible for doing some other things, but the key piece, the major critical piece is what we're funding in this is the building the new sewer line into that site, building the road into that site, building water into that site, and then also doing clearing of land, stormwater improvements, and the cut and fill. So the things that cannot be funded by the EDA grant are electrical infrastructure, gas infrastructure, because those are owned by private utility and they support a private utility. The EDA will not fund those, but everything else can be done. The application that we are submitting is for $10 million on the dot. It was $10 million and $10,000. I told CNS, let's get that to 10 million because everywhere we're talking about it is 10. So that, you know, that's not going to be an issue. I mean, it's just a, you know, a little bit in the contingency or in other areas to get it right to that number. But and what we are applying for is $7.5 million from EDA toward those projects in the scope that I discussed, and a $2.5 million match that was approved and by the IDA at the last meeting in cash as the local match. So yeah, I mean it's a, I guess in EDA terms they look at it as a simple application. It's probably the most complicated and involved grant application I've ever worked on, just because it's not just us, it's these other parties, and we have to show the synergy of our project to those other projects as part of it. One of the other big portions of this that we kind of found out after the fact is that equity, diversity, and inclusion is a major scoring criteria about this. So things that we typically are not having to include in our grant applications, we're having to show how our project, which is a little strange because it's an infrastructure project, relates to those things. But it's also not just our project, but just the overall region, and how the overall region is going to address issues that have sort of plagued our area for a very long time. And so I think it's we're doing a great job on it. As I've discussed before, there is 60 applications that are going for this funding. There's a minimum of 20 that will be funded. That's EDA told us that a minimum of 20 will be funded of these regional applications. Maybe more depending on how much money they have. If a lot of people ask for more money than what they're anticipating is the average award size, then they might just do 20. But there's also the potential that some of the 60 won't submit because the projects in the end don't meet the criteria. They can't come up with the actual cash contribution, or some of those projects won't be able to come up with it like we have. It's easy to talk about it in concept. It's a lot harder in implementation and making those things happen. So they may not have 60 applications total that submit. It might be somewhere in the range of 50 or 54, somewhere like that. We don't really know, but we're just working on our stuff and putting together the best absolute application we can and see where the chips fall at the end of the day. Other information is that they anticipate making announcements of awards late August, September time frame. But also in between that time, we also are going to get questionnaires. We're going to have the potential of having actual interviews, probably not in person, but remote interviews with people from EDA that are going to be asking us other questions about other projects happening in the area, other sorts of things that you can't fit in your narrative. Your narrative is only 6 pages. There's only so much you can put in there and address all of these other things: your scope, what your project, why your project's important, how it connects to these other projects. So there'll be other opportunities from now until August, probably in April, May, June, to paint the overall picture. And they'll probably have some other questions as well about other improvements being made, other other assets in the area, specifically how our project connects to and synergizes with these other component projects in the application. So, like I said, it's probably the most complicated grant application I've worked on, but it's also probably the application that I've actually seen the most amount of active collaboration with the other regional partners ever on anything. We've done a lot with, and I've worked on them with URI stuff in the past, with DRI stuff in the past, with the 5-year strategic plan, and this is by far, I mean, we're having weekly meetings, all of us together, we're knowing more about what each other is doing than ever before. So I think that, we get the funding or not, I think it's helping us to work together better. I mean, obviously we want to get the funding, but I think it's forcing us to have to work together in ways that, sometimes we're inconvenient, but we need to do it now, and I think it'll be helpful going forward.
Was there anything done relative to looking at the internal competition within New York State, because there's the SUNY one and there's the ESDC competing applications? Because obviously we don't think there's going to be 2 awards, and could be, but it's unlikely there's going to be 2 awards in one state.
We haven't really had the opportunity to look at that. Center State may be looking at it themselves, but I know that we just don't have the time to be looking and seeing what they're doing. I have been following in the newspaper and online that I believe the SUNY one is a project that's being developed. One of the major components is SUNY Binghamton. So it's, but I don't know if it's just related to Southern Tier or if it's sort of this interconnected SUNY project. To my knowledge, we're the only one that is has an actual defined core of a region, and that our region is a little bit different than what we normally would look at. We're typically looking at the Central New York region of the 5 counties. This is the lead on this project is Center State, and they're calling it the Center State New York region, which also is an 8-county region, goes over to Mohawk Valley, and then also kind of hits Tompkins County as well. So it's a little bit of a different region than what we're typically used to, but it adds in a lot of assets and power to that, which helps us to have a more compelling story.
Is there anything interesting about some of the other projects in our region that are tying in with this, and how they tie into what we're doing?
Sure. Well, one in particular, which we mention a lot in our narrative in our project, they mention us as well, is the White Pines project in northern Onondaga County in Clay. It's no secret that they are competing hard and are on a short list for, at one time I believe it was for several chip fab plants. I don't know if it's still several or if it's one at this point or 2, but that project in particular, because we're looking at developing our narrative for our scope is around developing the expansion of the Oswego County Industrial Park as a critical piece in the supply chain for this chip fab cluster, and it really is a cluster. What we've heard, what has been shared with me is that when one of these chip fab plants come, you're looking at $10 to $20 billion in investment, and you're going to have anywhere between 100 to 200 companies that are hangers on that kind of come with it. They need to be located nearby. Now, some of them may be on site with the chip fab plant, but a lot of them are going to be located within the region. And so we're looking at the design and concept put together by CNS, which hasn't changed. The layout has not changed from our original perspective a little bit, but it's still more or less 10 shovel-ready sites, looking at supporting between 700,000 and 1 million square feet. And due to the types of projects that we're going after, we have a little bit more information about the size of these companies and the kind of jobs. Potentially up to 1,200 jobs. Obviously,
In our
the chip fab plant at White Pines could support up to 4,000 jobs, plus any other kinds of things. So it's game changing, really. Obviously, things need to fall together for that to happen. But if we make the opportunity, we're giving ourselves the best chance to actually have it. And another thing I will say, it's outside of this Build Back Better, but if anyone saw yesterday that Governor Hochul had announced there's a new program. It's this Fast New York, where the state is putting $200 million into developing critical infrastructure and shovel-ready sites for. They're looking at the same thing for this chip fab, advanced manufacturing cluster, and so. And they're actually making their program a little bit, it looks so far, I mean, the specific criteria hasn't come out yet, but it looks like they're gonna make it a little bit more flexible in terms of, you can go for electric and gas infrastructure and some other things. So there may be some potential to look at that for some other pieces of the project that we can't do through EDA. But just to show that New York State wants to be a player in this. It's not just this EDA and actually the first site mentioned in that press release was the White Pine site. So New York State understands and recognizes that as a critical piece to doing this. And so yeah, getting back to some of the other projects, that is probably the one that we would, also because it's 8.5 miles away, we've really made these connections that these sites, even though they're separated, are connected in terms of being the supply chain and supply chain businesses for this chip fab operation. So, yeah.
What's the overall monetary ask?
For all of the projects, it's around $85 million. They said that regions can apply for up to 100 million, although what I've seen is that they're hoping that it looks like it's as low as 25 million. They're hoping that the average ask per region is 40 million. I have a feeling that it's going to be much, much higher than that. Like, from what I've seen, most of the regions are asking for like 75 million plus. So, but they said that they're going to fund 20 of these overall regions. So what they may have to do is, and I think Mike was kind of alluding to this a little bit, with some of the projects that are within these regions may get cut. Like, they may say, you've got 8 projects, however, the most we can fund is 75 million, so you got to find 10 million of the cut. And I don't know if they're going to give us the opportunity or if they're just going to do it. The other thing that they've said, which is a bit concerning, but this is their problem really, is that if they have to significantly cut projects from a region, but those projects all have synergy together and they need all those projects, and that project overall will become less competitive, and they just may not fund the whole thing, because if you have to cut half the projects out of a regional thing, what's left?
But the other aspect of that is, if there are projects cut due to EDA capacity to fund, they would be competitive or more competitive for any other federal funding or state funding.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's been a pretty interesting experience, and having to learn and kind of adopt some things that I didn't think we would have to for infrastructure projects, but it is what it is. But I think it's been cool, and being able to work on a daily basis with we're working on weekly calls with like Mohawk Valley Edge, which other than a few times seeing them at conferences and things like that, we just really never had those conversations. They're technically considered outside of our region, but they have assets there that play well with ours and that ours play with them. So it's opening doors and causing some collaborations that would not have happened otherwise, which I think is a good thing regardless of being funded.
That's great. Thank you for all the work you guys have put in. Just I know this could be a game changer, so appreciate it.
And I also want to thank Dave Turner. I don't think he's on any of the call or anything, but he's been very instrumental in the phase 1 part of the application, which got us to phase 2. If we didn't win phase 1, or we didn't get in phase 1, we wouldn't be talking about this now. And he's been very helpful in helping to secure support letters and some other technical assistance information. So I just don't want to leave Dave out. I know he put a lot of time into this, at the end of 2021, and because the IDA is the owner of the site, it made more sense for them to be the applicant. If Dave was the applicant, we'd have to be a sub-applicant anyway, so it didn't make sense to do that. But just want to thank him for what he's done.
But the other one is Dave Bocard,
Yes.
Section of Regional Planning Development Board. That's very helpful.
Yeah, I mentioned him early, but I mean, he's just yesterday, I mean, we were going through all of our stuff and making sure everything made sense, and we're kind of adjusting it as we go here.
Well, Dave is a collaborator from the standpoint that he's putting together the White Pines component, so it links very well with us.
So we're making sure that they fit together like a very good puzzle.
That's great.
This is Morris. I would like to also stress, and I'm sure you do, the advantage of our airport for business aircraft and so on is it's immensely helpful, and it's real handy for a lot of business aircraft that would take, from helicopters to 4,000 feet of runway, which is average for some of your small jets and turboprops. So this is all part of traveling that people like this have to have, and it's an asset to have. We have a full, line of fuels and everything else there, plus an instrument approach coming out of Syracuse, which guides the aircraft down in weather, so they can land there and take off there.
Yep.
Just a comment.
Good point.
Just being familiar with Boston Spa with Global Foundries, I saw how those industries, those chip fabs, just transformed that area. And the number of people that work there, the tradesmen and everything, just was unbelievable. So getting something like this sited in central New York would be huge. And I also want to include the building trades and the carpenters for their letters of support, because they were instrumental in pushing this through phase 1, and they're also working to help on phase 2. So that's been huge. Now you said other projects talked about. Is that projects just within the sphere of our application, or other projects in the area that?
So there's 8 component projects as part of our overarching project. Interstate is sort of the overarching partner. They also have a project in it, which is expansion of the Tech Garden. So that's one of the projects. The White Pines is a project. There's the Marcy Nanoflex site project. That's the one that's in Oneida County with Mohawk Valley, Mohawk Valley Edge. There is a workforce consortium project. There is a STEAM school project in the city of Syracuse. There is a quantum research project. So there's several that are kind of bricks and mortar infrastructure projects, including ours, White Pines, Marcy, and the Tech Garden. And then there's these workforce projects. And I think that their application kind of said that, we could put all this infrastructure in, but if there isn't trained people to take up those jobs, there's, what are we doing? So I think it was really looking at, we need to marry the workforce part of it and the infrastructure part of it to create a compelling case to attract these types of businesses to Central New York. And then in terms of the 60, that is just other regions. There's the Center State New York region is considered one of those 60, and then those other regions have component projects as part of their application. That's how it works.
So there are
That's
3
all
within New York.
It's nationwide.
Yes, in the territory, in U.S.
Yeah.
territories.
There's 3 from New York.
Yep.
But I guess we're, outside of everything we're putting an application for, and all the businesses, I'm talking about, some of the other industries in the area,
Sure.
expanding, building,
Yeah.
potential. Is that kind of show a positive
Yes.
influence on our application as far as this area is open for business?
Yes, yeah, and let me give a little bit more detail. So the way the EDA looks at it is, yes, existing businesses that are here are obviously important. They're looking more at new job creation, so new things coming in, new jobs being created by those businesses. Not that retention is not important, but just specifically for this program, they're looking at the new portion. So there is a lot of support from businesses within the region already that are what they consider the smart systems cluster is sort of semiconductor chip fabrication, looking at radar, sensors. There's some other specific advanced manufacturing portions of that, 5G. So it's a pretty, it's not everything. It's not like all advanced manufacturing. It's a specific cluster, industry cluster. But yeah, I mean, within that, you've got Saab, you've got Syracuse Research, you've got Lockheed, you've got big players in the market.
What about healthcare and energy and things
Those
like
are
that?
not. No, those are not part of it. I mean, they're part of the overall region, but they're not within that cluster. So they're specifically looking at investments that are going to increase the jobs, investment, and really the power of that industry cluster within the Central New York area.
You know, another aspect of our component part of the application, we may be the only one, certainly the only one in New York State, that the first phase of the industrial park in Schuylkill was an EDA project. So this, because it's been successful, because we're out of space down there basically, this is an expansion of that too, which should bode well with EDA in terms of they have already funded a component part of this overall bigger picture.
Any other questions for Austin?
Thanks for signing.
Sorry
Awesome.
for being
Thank you very
long-winded.
much.
Let's go, that's
Yeah,
great.
you can stay right there if
Okay.
you want, if you'd like.
I'm taking some notes over here, so.
Okay. Okay, is there any other stuff we need to discuss before we go into executive session? Michael, other business?
Nope.
I could set the next meeting, but
I guess we could, yeah, why not?
We're looking at the early April, like April 5, which is a Tuesday, or 6, a Wednesday, or the 7th, a Thursday. Some suggested dates.
Definitely can't do Tuesday, that's EDP. I can do Wednesday, Thursday.
I won't be here.
Wednesday's good for me. Thursday's good for me.
We have my calendar shows a OOC Marketing and Development Committee meeting. Is that at 9 o'clock on the
That is
6th?
a semblance. I don't know if that was a placeholder meeting.
I think it is, but it's on my calendar.
So
Do we wanna wait till the following, Glenn, you said you won't be here that
I
week?
won't be here that weekend. We're be gone on vacation from the 6th through the 12th.
Is it too late to wait till 15th? 13th or 15th?
How about Wednesday the 13th? Does that work with you, Kevin?
Yes.
Michael, is that gonna fit?
Yeah, you can do that. The 13th is okay, the 14th ain't gonna work.
So it's Wednesday,
The 13th?
April 13th at 9 o'clock? Perfect. Everybody good with that? Morris?
Sounds okay.
Okay. All right, so it's a done deal. Next, Wednesday, April 13th at 9 o'clock.
Wednesday the 13th.
Did I say that right?
You said next Wednesday.
Oh, no, next Wednesday, April 13th.
Father's birthday, Thomas Jefferson's.
Hey, Thomas Jefferson, okay, man, let's go.
Okay, so there's, you wanna talk about, just mention Morris?
Yeah.
Since you thought of it.
I just wanted to make clear for the minutes that when we were taking attendance, that Barry Trimble was excused for today's meeting and not absent. Okay, so there's a difference. So, that was that.
Okay, anything else to discuss before we, any other business before we go into executive session? Okay, do I have a motion to go into executive session?
I'll make it.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Tim Stahl, seconded by Nick Canelli to go into executive session. And the reason we're going into executive session, Kevin?
Pursuant
Thanks,
to
Bob.
the New York State Public Officers Law, Section 105(1)(f), to discuss the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the time is, Len?
9:39.
Okay, we'll go into executive session at 9:39.
Let's record Len's voice.
It's running.
Okay, so I guess we're coming out of executive session, so do I have a motion and a second to come out of executive session?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Nick Canale, seconded by Tim Stahl to come out of executive session at what time?
11:39.
At 11:39. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, we have some, if I miss one, Kevin, please, let me know. We have a few, items that we have to, business we have to take care of. First is a letter of resignation, from the board from Tom Kells in a pending, is that how you would phrase it, letter, or just a letter of resignation?
Yeah, without a specific,
Pending replacement.
Pending,
letter.
and a letter of resignation pending replacement for, Len Schick.
We'll make independent resolutions for these two.
I think you can accept them both.
I'll make a motion to accept both of those resignations,
Okay,
pending replacements.
do I have a second?
You wanna second it?
I'll second it. Okay, motion by Nick Canale, seconded by Gary Toth to accept the letters of resignation from Tom Kells and Len Schick. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, the next one is the farm rent payment for Harris Drive, the crop year 2021. And Kevin, how did we leave that we were gonna,
Just return payment. Yeah, authorize the return of the payment to the prior property owners
okay,
I'll make that
for
motion.
the, and this for, specifically for the 2021 crop payment.
thank you. Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Nick Canale, seconded by Len Schick on the 2021 crop payment. All those, is there any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, the Columbia Mills site, the acquisition, is there, how would we,
Just authorization to negotiate.
authorization to negotiate? Okay. All right, so an authorization to negotiate with the landowner on the property acquisition. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Len, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Len Schick, seconded by Nick Canale on the property acquisition inquiry. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, the Peck Road appraisal, this is to allow, Mike and Austin to enter in discussions with the town of Richland regarding the property on Peck Road.
Now, we also kind of twisted that in terms of doing it in the form of an option.
Okay,
I'll make that motion.
all right, so we have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Tim Stahl, seconded by Len Schick to enter in discussions on a Peck Road option for acquisition with the town of Richland.
The final price will come here for approval.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, any discussion? Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's carried. Okay, the delinquent loan report that Kevin gave us, do I have a motion to accept that?
I'll make it.
Motion by Tim, seconded by
I'll second.
Morris.
Morris. Okay, motion by Tim Stahl, seconded by Morris Rebello on the delinquent loan report. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, the EIR Healing and Wellness micro loan for $25,000. I'll entertain a motion in a second to accept that.
I'll make that motion.
Morris makes a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, Morris, a motion by Morris Rebello, seconded by Nick Canale on the micro enterprise loan for healing and wellness. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. And the Vistra site, the granting of the easement for Novellis. I'll entertain a motion on that.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Tim Stahl, seconded by
I'll second.
Len Schick. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Okay, granting of easement is carried. And,
That's it.
I think that's it for, agenda items. Is there any other business to discuss?
There was one
Gary?
particular loan,
Whoops, hold it, Morris.
Jerry, this is,
Hold it just a second, Morris. What's
there
that?
was one particular loan, we discussed it in the delinquent loan report that the board wanted to take some legal action against.
I think though that is following our policy.
Right. Yeah,
It's
it
just the
is.
next
Okay, so we don't need a
lawyer
separate
letter.
authorization,
If
yeah.
we go, if we,
This is absolutely following our policy, yes.
yeah, if we proceed to litigation, then I want authority to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I assume that because of our discussion in approving the delinquent loan report, that automatically went in place.
Okay, any other things we discussed?
And the other offers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Morris, you had something you wanted to share with us?
yes, I would like, I have a new email. My, the email is morservo2@gmail.com.
Oh, that's good, cause I got rejected. when I sent you one before.
Could you share that with all of us?
Well, what is it again? Say that again?
It's on the form.
morservo2, number 2, or 2, just a symbol 2, @gmail.com.
We can send everybody a list, cause we just updated that, so we'll send you a list of all the ID members.
Okay.
And there you go.
Anything else to discuss? Motion to adjourn?
I'll make that.
Okay, motion by Nick Canale, seconded by, I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I'm kind of-
Thank you very much, everyone.
46.
Yep,